Thank you everyone for joining us. I call to order the Council Rules Ad Hoc Committee for Monday, April 27th. I'm Coombs. I am the Mayor Pro Tem and Chair of this committee. We're also joined by the Mayor and Councilmember Medina, who are members of the committee, and we will have Councilmember Jackson here shortly, and Councilmember Hancock is also in attendance. So thank you all again for joining today. We do have a few speakers when we get there, but first we have approval of the minutes. So Councilmember Medina, any changes to the minutes? All right, and I will go ahead and pass it, or begin with item 3A. Under items for initial consideration, that's city council travel budget allocation. So currently in our council rules, the council travel budget allocation lays out the purposes of the travel budget, which is for council to use for conferences and other training opportunities. It lays out a fixed amount, $7,000 for council members and $11,000 for the mayor, or such other amounts may be determined by the budget. And so this year we did reduce the budget in accordance with the across the board travel reductions for all city employees. And currently it says that the council members and mayors will be responsible for paying those dollar amounts themselves. And also that council members may not, and this is further down, may not share their budget allocations. And so the request that I've had is to allow council members to share budget allocations. And so the request is for the city manager and the city attorney to draft a change where it says it is impermissible for a council member to transfer, loan, or otherwise provide funds as between one council member's account and another council member's account to permit sharing among council.
Can you give me an example of where that would happen? Why somebody would share?
So for example, myself and you and Councilmember Medina all started on this council during COVID. And so we couldn't travel in 2020, but we had a budget allocation. Couldn't travel in 2021, but we had a budget allocation. There were even some trips canceled in 2022, but we still had budget allocation. So all of that has carried over. Meanwhile, the new council members have entered in a year when we have the reduction in council budgets. So if they wanted to travel, they can and they will, but the total amount of funds they have available is pretty limited. So I have more than I can use because all those years I couldn't travel at all. And they are somewhat limited compared to other folks entering and joining council. So the ask is for the city manager and city attorney to develop a defensible process, right? One that involves clear tracking and approvals for council members to be able to share their budgets among accounts.
So what is the amount they're authorized?
Right now, I believe it's 5,500 for new council members. Yeah, for 2026, everyone got 55. The normal amount is 7,000.
Reductions. And so, of course, ends, but the account balance of Councilmember Medina is thousands. And so the idea would be that they could approach one of the fellow council members that have the money and say, hey, Mayor Pro Tem, can I borrow $3,000 of your travel budget to do X? And it would be up to the council member's budget who has it to say yes. And if that was the process, then there would be a coordination with Jason and I on a process that would say, all right, we have the two council members that wrote an agreement, probably a bureaucratic form, just so we can track it, and then go from there. But it's Again, the way the rules are currently now, Mayor, is because they hold over. It does put the new council members somewhat at a limitation of what they can do, especially in budget crisis years like we're in. But that's another way to do it too, is you guys could change your rules that whatever you don't use at the end of the year goes back to the general fund. So every year they start off, that's another conversation. Every year everybody starts off at the same level. But I mean, but the council members, especially Councilmember Lawson and Bergen, they have a lot of money in their account.
Well, why don't we, I mean, that's one way to look at it. To go up to $7,000, to go, but then anybody who has a balance above that, it reverts back to the general fund. Yeah, that's what I was considering. It should just go back.
I think it should.
So it sounds like it's reset every year. Okay.
I didn't realize it was cumulative. So that just sounds a little, you know, transferring money from one council member to another. I just think that's unseemly. So, but I would support, and it would be probably quite a bit of money, saying that there's a cap of $7,000.
Or 10 maybe. I mean, because that's maybe be 7, but that'd be like a year and a half. If you cap, 10,000.
Because I have quite a bit.
Right.
Yeah, you
So-
do, I do.
Well, why don't we say, why don't we go revert back 7?
70, wasn't it 7,500?
Seven.
7 and 11,000 for the mayor and 7,000
I
council.
would revert back to 7 and then, okay, then let's say 10,000 is a cap.
Okay.
And anything above 10,000 reverts back to the general fund.
On 12/31.
Uh,
And then because they were set in the beginning of the budget year, so January 1.
Yeah.
So at whatever the balance, anything over 10,000 on 12/31 of each year.
Well, I think you would carry over 3,000 of that, so you're back at your 10,000, so because you get refreshed with 7,000 the following year.
So you could essentially carry over 3,000 a year, then you get your 7,000 allocation. However, for the new council members, we would transfer from unused existing funds to bring
I
up to
think-
7,000? Is
I
that?
think we just make everybody 7, what, is it 7,500 or 7?
7,000.
I think we just make everybody 7,000. We go retroactive
Keep it clean.
for the new members.
I can get you guys balances if you want to.
Yeah,
We'll get
and-
everybody on the current balance. if you're okay with that.
Yep.
Yeah,
So it sounds like what I'm hearing then is you guys, the committee is preferring everyone gets 7,000 and we're not going to do the sharing.
but we're gonna revert.
Right, we'll adjust everyone's account balance to 7,000 for this year, and then folks can carry over up to 3,000. Is that what you're saying here?
Yeah, I think it,
Well, if you're gonna do that, carry it over, then you still get your 7,000.
So on January 1, you can carry over 3,000 from the previous year if you're already on council. And then on January 1, you would get 7,000. So you would have a total of 10,000 in your budget beginning January 1.
That's the cap.
That's the cap. So that's it. And so,
That's what's.
so really, realistically, new council members coming in, they get sworn in on, the first meeting in December. They wouldn't get their allocation until January 1 because of the budget. I mean, if you had travel in December, we could figure that out. But generally, you would have 7,000 your first year at a max. But every other council member could carry over 3 and have 10,000 per year. And what if they,
And then the rest of that reverts back to.
everything over that reverts back. So at the end of the year, let's say you only use 5,000, but you have 7,000 in there, you'd have 2,000 that could carry over. Let's say you only use $1,000. So then 1,000 is going to be back to the general fund and 3,000 can be carried over.
So I'll leave it to the two of you to write up kind of from a policy and forms standpoint, what that looks like. Are there any questions from any members who are present?
We'll get you
Any
the-
comments
get you the account balance.
That's all, there's any objection to that from the committee, right?
and any objection? Okay. Great. Thank you.
That makes it easier on a
I think
legally
it keeps it
prescriptive
clean
way
too.
it keeps it
Right.
clean, yeah.
I'm good with whatever we want to do. I just know there are a lot of us just sitting around here with these larger balances and other folks that are in a tough position for this year. So just try to make it a little more equal.
And then aren't some of the trips actually paid for out of, like, the DC trip, the lobbying trips, they're actually
The
paid?
DC lobbying trip is covered by a separate budget, but
But like
Other-
Accelerate is something that comes out of our travel budget.
Right. If we do any of the mayoral missions, those come out of our travel budget. And then any other conferences that we attend. So
Like
typically,
CML and those things.
right, typically, any travel conferences come out of the council members' budget.
Okay, just,
And also any other kind of classes and trainings. So sometimes I've signed up for like online trainings with CML and other organizations that are like $50 here and there. And those also come out of the same budget because it's technically travel and training.
got it.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks, y'all. We'll review the proposal at the next meeting, May 21st. And at that time, public comment also is permitted on that topic. So for each meeting, public comment is permitted on all topics and on items under section 4, items for open discussion. We'll take public comment and we can ask questions of the speakers and have some back and forth exchange. So with that being said, we are going to move on to items for open discussion. We're going to begin with item 4A, public participation and decorum at council meetings, of which we have 2 speakers. So if you all can both come up together. We have KDOT and AON. If you all want to come sit at the end of the table, sit in the whatever 2 chairs at the end of the table you'd like to, and then I'll let you know. Kendall, are you timing or do you want me to time or is Katie timing?
I can time.
You have to move the chairs to this side.
You can sit on, unless you prefer. this-
Yeah, you sit down there to block your view from the camera.
Oh, that's true. So
Yeah,
maybe
that's good.
sit
Yep.
here. Usually we do the podium, but you also can't see speakers at the podium. So this works well. So we'll go ahead and start with KDOT for 3 minutes on public participation and decorum at council meetings.
Is it a specific subject or?
So just, this is an opportunity for you to share any concerns that you have on the rules that may be applied to the public regarding decorum at council meetings.
So, First Amendment is the first, greatest, one of the greatest laws of the land. That's what I operate off. I want to be very clear, I operate off of the law of the land. Not administrative, not maritime or admiralty. And censoring that is not fully exercised. And it's like I was having a conversation with Councilmember Coombs. Just because I use colorful language in my speech, doesn't mean that it's not lawful. And I think that's what we've gotten away from. We've gotten catered to people's feelings. And then that's, I mean, what are we doing? How are we supposed to get together as community members, council people, all those types of stuff? If you're just simply worried about my speech, I'm allowed to speak that. And I'll even go to jail to do that. I've been there, done that, beat the case. I don't lose cases. Peter knows. I don't, period. And if people don't like my speech, you can quit. Simple as that. Don't give a damn. You can quit. You don't like my speech, you can quit.
How do you feel about the children in the audience? Just curious.
Wait,
I'm
let's
sorry.
let them
Yeah, sorry.
give
sorry.
their comments and then.
Maybe
we're
throw
gonna
that
take
in there, but
questions
yeah.
and back.
Because I think that's the beautiful thing about our nation is that other countries are allowed to speak. Sometimes you get hung or shot or, just another country, I probably would have got to spend a long time ago. But at the end of the day, I know you don't like what I say about you. Don't give a damn. quick. You don't like what I say about you because you look like a dried up grapefruit. Who cares? I'm allowed to say it.
All right, there's the 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Mr. Anderson, you have 3 minutes as soon as Kendall is reset.
Mayor, members of council, I think my approaching the dais comes from a unique position that other public commenters don't have. I know what it means to sit on the side that you all sit on when it comes to public comment. This is definitely, I would say, when you have people that come and offer public comment, I've been on that side. I think my last year on my term on the school board, it was often filled with a lot of angry parents that utilize their freedom of speech, they utilize their First Amendment right. And sometimes they said things that I just did not agree with. But one thing that I was very key with is making sure that they did not have their public comment stifled. I opposed limitations on public comment when brought up by my colleagues. My colleagues often would give the message of, we're hearing the same message for hours on end. And I remember sitting in a school board meeting, for example, when we were debating the future of the innovation zone, and we had public comment go until 2 a.m. is the longest public comment that we've ever had in DPS history. And I mention that because I believe that there are often times about policing somebody's creative words that they may use. While we may disagree with those individuals, they do have a right under the First Amendment to say what they need to say, as long as it is not a threat. When it becomes a threat of violence, that is when a line is crossed. I would say that to this matter, the folks that are coming to you this evening, and then also through the last 2 years, often are coming because they feel unheard elsewhere. They're not getting calls back by the police department or those who are investigating if a police officer's actions impact how they impacted their family. They're not getting those calls back. Many times families are learning about the fate of their loved one through the media, or hey, we just got this from the DA's office. And so the reason why you all get that pressure is because nobody can march into Todd Chamberlain's office and say, hey, I have a concern, I have a question. I'm really disappointed in the way that your officer acted or the way that this happened. Unfortunately, you all signed up for this job. You ran for this job, you asked the voters to put you in this job, and they did. And so being on that other side, now that has the weight of having to hear what the pains of community when it happens in the city of Aurora. And I would end with that often, discomfort is not disruption. Urgency is not disrespect. We must acknowledge that enforcement has not historically been neutral. And any new system that does not actively correct inequity will always reproduce it.
Thank you both for your comments. We will have one other panel after you, but we'll go ahead and for now open it up to 10 minutes of Q&A for Mr. KDOT and Mr. Anderson, starting with members of the committee. Any members of the committee have questions for either?
I just have a question for the city attorney. Tell us about any.
Mayor, I apologize. Can we, since it is limited to 10 minutes, can we focus on the questions for the speakers, and then we'll come back to questions for the city attorney? If we could just write that question down.
Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you, Kevin.
That's KDOT.
Kevin,
KDOT.
this is not your name.
Goddamn right.
I really don't. I don't understand why you use the speech you use. I think you would be more effective in making your point by not doing that.
Well, my response to that is, I don't understand why you're even sitting in that chair right now. Because you suck at your job. in your, yeah, so my response is because I can. Do you know the acronym of law? LAW? Land, air, water. And where we operate? Land. Common law. It's because I can, Michael. You might not like my speech. I might not like your speech, but you're allowed to say it. Even if I don't agree with you to say, I respect it because it came from you. Now, we've never had a civil conversation. I've tried to have a civil conversation in the beginning, giving you a chance, but I've seen how, I've seen your demeanor, you just don't care. Don't care. That's the problem. So if I pour my frustrations out on you, go to God about it. Get a therapist. I don't know what to tell you, buddy. But I'm gonna say it. And there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. You can call in all the dogs you want to, and you should know by now. I don't care if you had me arrested. I'll get out. Okay? And then guess what else? If you have me unlawfully arrested for speech, I get to sue you. Right?
Is that why you're here?
That's absolutely
Is
right.
that your objective?
I'm sorry?
Is that your objective?
Is that my objective? My objective is to be a free American. That's my objective. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I just wanted to say, I appreciate both of you speaking on this matter. I think outlining threats is critical as a threshold. I think freedom of speech is really important. And I think public invite to be heard is a special space because we can mimic the public, right? And we can't always control what happens with the public. And, you know, I have a young kiddo as well. And so it's a gentle, I hear this gentle balance of, you don't want to control it. Freedom of speech is what, you know, people fought and died for in this country. And so let's honor it. It's our job. We're in this role to serve the public. I would like to see us work together more. And so I hear how we're kind of the front. We get that, what was it? The pressure of the public coming because they can't go to some of the other offices and directly voice their concerns. And so I hear that balance of freedom of speech and we're in this. One question I do have is for Aonte. Could you just repeat the last couple sentences of the comparisons that you outlined? Because I thought they were pretty valid.
Yeah. I stated that decorum has historically been used as a tool of control rather than a framework of shared respect. Discomfort is not disruption. Urgency is not disrespect. We must acknowledge that enforcement has not historically been neutral. And any new system that does not actively correct inequity will reproduce it. And if I may, I would also add on to with the threats, I don't agree with insulting somebody's physical appearance. I also would add that under as an elected official who has bared the weight of, you know, of folks making comments on my appearance, I can't endorse the appearance remarks made of members of council of any elected body. I think it just goes into a space of bullying. And I think that as you debate what those lines are going to be, I think you might get yourself into a murky waters with somebody trying to go back and forth with you of saying, like, I called somebody ugly, and then like, oh, I'm gonna sue you because you kicked me out of the meeting, whatnot. I just don't endorse it, and I often believe that unfortunately it opens up other individuals believing that they can talk to people recklessly in a space where it's just not okay. Like respectfully, and this is a space where me and KDOT will disagree, but I believe that like standing up for Black women, period, regardless of your party affiliation. And so like hearing words where often there are Black women's appearance on council mocked, I would not stand for that if I heard that from a white man, right? Or if somebody else just in general. And so I don't endorse that. And I also want to make sure that as you debate those spaces, you all also acknowledge you are humans as well, and bullying is real. And so I can't get behind continuing to attack one's appearance.
Can I respond to that?
I'd rather not have the dialogue
Yeah,
between the speakers. It's really questions from the council members to the speakers and dialogue. So you all can have a sidebar if you would like to. Councilmember Hancock, do you have
Well,
a question?
I really, it's more of a comment, more than a question. Again, I served in the military. I believe in the Constitution and people's right to speak. I think there's such a thing as self-control, using appropriate speech in appropriate venues that, you can't say out of one side of your mouth, I respect people, I respect my elders, I respect women, I respect children, and I respect sacred spaces, and then in the other breath, curse people out. I mean, that's just inconsistent. And it shows a level of, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And it shows a level of maturity, it shows a level of consciousness. And also, when I grew up in the era, you use profanity when you didn't have anything smart to say. So you can use language and be just as powerful without using profanity. Because I think about, again, kids that are sitting in the room who are coming because they want to learn about what government is. You can disagree with me all day long. I knew the job was dangerous when I took it, but it's, making personal comments about me, I know who I am. I am fearfully and wonderfully made by God. So what you say doesn't mean a thing to me. But the fact is that there are young people watching and they think that this is okay. And then you have others who want to come and, present their points of view as well. And I've gotten email after email that they actually feel threatened by that. Language in and of itself doesn't threaten me. If you want to come and you want to throw hands, that's another conversation. But to be able to come and to passionately express your views in a respectful manner to people who you say you respect, and you may not, I don't know. But if you say that you're supposed to respect a certain caliber of person, the office that they're in, the work that they do, because you have no idea, you have some idea because you've been in this position. But when you're sitting in this position where everybody expects a lot of things from you, there's a lot more going on in BCI, and you can't make assumptions that you know what that is unless you're there. And so for Kevin, the remarks you made about me, I don't care two craps about what you say. But what I do care about is those who are watching. It really impacts them and it causes them to back up. And if that's the intention, then that's probably what they do.
We're just gonna allow momentarily a response, probably respectful from Mr. KDOT and then.
Yeah, I think you're,
Okay.
and here's the reason why I think you're a hypocrite. Because you sent your son after me.
That's
Hold on,
all
hold on,
based
hold on,
lie.
hold on,
You are a
hold on,
liar.
hold on, I let
You
you-
are a
I-
liar.
I let her speak, right?
Yes, but also
Don't
let's
just
keep
throw out lies.
the
okay? Make sure you got your
conversation-
facts straight before you start.
Okay.
opening your
focus
mouth.
on the topic. Ms. Grayson, let's keep the conversation focused on the topic at hand. We're not talking about like what did or didn't
And I have-
happen.
And I had some legs.
So, that's the end of the 10 minutes, but also like for everyone, what we do need to do is stay focused on the topic. So not did this happen, did that happen, did this happen
Yes, ma'am.
conversation, because that it's not productive.
Yes.
And there are other people who want to speak.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
Yes.
I do think the mayor and, Ante also had some additional conversations, comments, and Mr. KDOT, if you have some comments that are to the topic and not about what did or didn't happen in the past, then if folks are willing to extend the time, by 3 minutes, I'm willing to extend the time.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so Mr. KDOT, if you want to wrap up with kind of focus to the conversation at hand, and then we can go to Ante and then the mayor.
On the same.
Right, on the same topic of, of the
So,
insults is the topic that, that Ayante had raised and that, Councilmember Hancock.
Clarifying, is it 3 minutes per person or 3 in total?
3 minutes total. So yeah, let's also keep it.
what I said, what I said was objective and factual. First Amendment is what I express. Again, you might not like it, don't care. But at the end of the day, what she expressed was anecdotal. As far as, oh, just because you should, you couldn't, can do it, but you can't do it. No, I'm sorry, the Constitution wasn't written like that. The Constitution was stated freedom of speech, period. Freedom of speech. So, and you guys took oaths to protect that speech. You didn't imply your feeling because of that speech. And I asked you to be objective and stick to the goal. It doesn't matter what I'm saying. I'm
Okay,
allowed to say it.
thank you. Ayante, did you want to add any additional comments before we go to the mayor?
I would just say that I'm gonna just focus on the cussing piece. I work with middle schoolers and Medina students at the middle school. I hear creative words every single day. I know that there are opinions about time and place. I don't know if that is the hill that I'm willing to like go back and forth and die on about cussing. I would definitely just make sure that any rules that are created, again, honor the First Amendment. 2, threats of any kind should not be tolerated. 3, I don't know, Pete, how you're gonna get around the insults piece. I don't even think that's possible. But I would definitely say there have been times where I have heard children of those who have lost their parents, those who have been impacted by the issues that we consistently come to speak about, who have not used creative words whatsoever, or inappropriate words. And I don't know if those children have had any sort of reach out, olive branch, have had any opportunity to sit down with any council member. And so if you don't want to talk to me, that's fine. But at least there are folks that have been directly impacted by folks that are a part of the city of Aurora that definitely deserve your attention. And it is okay not to ever need to want to speak to me, but at least reach out to those kids that have been impacted, that have come to speak to you.
Yeah, yeah, I do. Well, it's to the city too.
Yes.
Okay, are there any reasonable restrictions when it comes to speech? And public invited view?
Sure, and what I'll say is that, of course, Kate, I didn't mean to poke you there with I don't sometimes like what I hear, but I will defend your right to say it up and down. You know that, right? We cannot and we will not, under my advice, try to mitigate content. We just won't. And so, again, I only brought that up because I have heard, the kids come in, but I will never tell you that we're gonna do anything to you if you keep using the language, right? That's your choice. As Mr. Anderson stated, I agree with him, threats cross the line and you guys, and it's been very rare that I've even seen somebody get close to that. But what we can do is we can manner and means, right? We can be consistent. We can say it's 3 minutes. You go over 3 minutes, you're violating the rules. It had nothing to do with your content, right? Other things. And, as the committee works through these areas, right? The question is how do we put some teeth, right, into the rules where people will follow what we're asking everybody to do, right? And, one of the things that was kind of came up at the last rules committee meeting is really not, I'm not a fan of the police coming in and making arrests during a live council meeting, right? Because I think it's disruptive. Now, there are things that the council can do in their council rules that can limit the behavior later on, sure. And I think what that means, and I think what the committee is going to probably discuss is is what happens when somebody does violate the rules that are just doing manner and means, not content, but manner and means. And does that mean that they get asked to leave? Then they're criminally trespassed for the next meeting, so they get time out for one meeting, they can't come back. So they come back the next meeting and try to get in, then they would be subject to arrest. But again, it's not doing anything immediately at the meeting. And so as we have these conversations, as you state what you're saying, Kayla, I know that you like to use the colorful language ever since I've been here. I can't tell you you can't. But, you know, as the mayor said, you know, you want to look and see what that could have effect on individuals if you care. It doesn't matter to me. I just, and so the only time that speech like that, Mayor, can get somebody in trouble with the profanity or whatever, it's compared to inciting a riot, right? If somebody using such bad language and such insulted language that is causing a disruption so bad that people are getting, you know, leading towards violence, that's when your speech could be regulated. Of course, I haven't seen that in the council meeting. So again, I'm never going to advise as the lawyer for the city, I'm never going to advise council to regulate content.
So I think it'd be good for you to come up with this. Here's the problem that I have. And this is just to me. And that people think that I support it. People think that I am allowing, that it is my discretion for Kevin to talk the way he talks. And that's not true. And so I think if you were to come up with a statement that distances me from that language, I would really appreciate it.
And Mayor, we're gonna get to that in 5A is the revision of the decorum statement. So, yeah, understood on that point. I do want to note that some of the other items that we've discussed are virtual participation as well as kind of potential consequences. And this is on community member, right? Public commenters. We also will have comment section on council member decorum and conduct as well. So are there any further comments from this panel on potential sanctions or on virtual participation, Mr. Aonte?
I don't know, I may have missed it, but I remember we had the one meeting where the person like crashed or Zoom bombed or whatever it was, and when there was virtual public comment and said some pretty anti-Semitic, anti-Black sort of sentiments, I would kind of give caution, or like, if there's not truly a system to prevent that in the future, because I could just see somebody who doesn't like any of us at this table still hopping on that meeting, not having to identify themselves and saying some off the wall crap, and creating another environment where folks were not welcomed. I definitely, if there's virtual public comment, I think that opens up means for accessibility. I do support that. But also, if there's not a mechanism to where you can prevent the incident that did happen, I would caution against it.
And I did speak with the city attorney briefly about that earlier today. I don't know if you want to share any comments about kind of things we can do to help ensure identification and limit participation from folks that would be creating a threatening environment.
Yes, Madam Chair. So I'll tell you, yeah, that speech was unlawful, right? Because you could see the feelings in the room. People were getting very angry. That's the type of speech I was talking about that can be insightful, right? And so what we have seen coming out of COVID is people have gotten really creative, right, on spoofing their IP addresses, where we used to be able to geofence, right? We used to be able to say, all right, if you're in Colorado, you could call in, because a lot of those individuals were calling from out of state, right? They were picking the big cities, the top 50 cities, and they were lambasting all their public comment, saying the same stuff. And we kind of expected that to do it. So as we've been looking through, the city clerk and the city manager and I have been looking through some of the ideas, I think the best way to limit that is to throw that into an accommodation type situation, not an ADA, but just an accommodation. It doesn't have to necessarily be an ADA accommodation, but putting a process in where somebody has to take steps before the meeting, where they have to tell us who they are, then we can call them, right, when we're ready to do that. Because we're probably, under that rule, probably won't have a lot of accommodation requests every meeting. We might, we may not, right? but at least that puts some safeguards on it, content neutral, right? We're not gonna get into content, but to make sure that, yes, there truly is a reason why. It's not that you just can't get to the meeting, right? Because you're working late or whatnot, but there's really something going on personally. You're in the hospital, you're, whatnot, to do it. That's what I kind of talked to the Mayor Pro Tem about, is having that kind of framework. So, and having somebody neutral, not gonna be Jason or I handling that. It's gonna be probably one of our folks in the disability office, right? The ADA office that is trained up on that to be able to counter that. Again, with the 48 hours in advance, letting everybody know, we'll make it clear, on the rules, this is what it takes if you have some sort of accommodation that you need to appear virtually. Obviously, the pressure will be you come down, but obviously some individuals can't do that.
Thank you both. Oh, sorry, Mr. Kayla. Go ahead.
Yeah, so. I come from a background of roasting. So, I don't know if y'all know what that is.
I think we all know.
But I do agree with, Deontay, I think that is outside the bound, but if that, first of all, the guy was a coward calling in and saying, because damn well, he wouldn't say that in our face. That's why he said that over on. I want to be very, very clear. But that's the beautiful thing about the First Amendment. I get to tear your ass down too. Now, what I'm saying is that collectively, we can really do some things together as far as our free speech. And if you only noticed when I'm frustrated about something, there's usually a subject matter of why I'm frustrated about something. It's never I'm just cussing you out just to cuss you out. There's always there is an end goal. The end goal is for me to be heard. But the thing is, I'm also testing your ego. So are you going to be more in tune with your ego, which consists of your feelings, or are you going to be more in tune what is he logistically saying? Because I can have civil conversation. I've had it with Jason. I've had it with you. I've had it with you, Peter. I'm very
No cussing. In those conversations, sorry.
I'm very reflective. And to be honest, you put in that rule. First time I cussed you out. And then that's when you started saying that rule as far as, language and all that type stuff. And I felt attacked because you were attacking my speech. You cared more about what the colorful language was instead of actually hearing me as a human being and a taxpayer. You didn't care about hearing me, Michael. You just didn't. And so I tried the nice guy thing. It doesn't get me anywhere. So when I hold you accountable, you don't like it. You just don't like it. You don't like my speech. But guess what? I'm the type of person that gets stuff done. And the stuff that I do behind the scenes, you don't even notice. Because you're so focused on your personal feelings toward me, instead of being like, you know what? Let me take K-Dot to lunch. Let me hear his idea. And I'll be more than happy to have a civil conversation with you. I've done it with cops. I've shouted out, matter of fact, I've shouted out cops' names and badge numbers when they did a great job. Have I not, Peter?
Yeah.
At city council meetings.
All right, Mr. Kdot, thank you.
Okay.
I think we've got the points. We want to make time for the remaining folks for the next panel, but thank you and thank you Mr. Anderson for comments. Thank you, council, for your thoughtful questions and feedback as well. And we're gonna go ahead and call up the next panel, which is Veronica Sebron, Samantha Parente, and Kyle Lutz. If you need to bring the baby up while you're commenting, all good.
She doesn't have a choice.
I know how that goes, so. Three minutes, yep, initially 3 minutes comment, and then since there are three of you, we'll do up to 15 minutes of Q&A and discussion. So we will go ahead and start with Ms. Sebron. And this begin on public comment, public member comment decorum.
So first, before I even read what I wrote, I want to address the dialogue that I seen going back and forth just today. I seen a lack of maturity on both sides. Even the elderly gentleman behind Miss Stephanie, I heard him call Mr. KDOT an asshole, which is cussing and name calling.
I did.
I hear a lot of sighs and gesture just as such from that side also, which can lead down to one thing that we should agree on, is we're human. So it's not to come and attack, because I have seen antagonizing to this family. I've seen, because they know the limit, the buttons pushed by gestures, by words. I've seen meetings held off for a break so people can come off the panel and speak directly. That is antagonizing. So when I address the subject of decorum, which is raised, I have to pause. Because when you speak about decorum, it is from a place of comfort, while families like mine speak from a place of loss. So the conversation is already unequal. You may not understand the emotional and mental state of a mother, a father, a brother, a sister who had to see their loved one laying in a casket long before their time was due. You may not understand what it does to see a father laid to rest, who will never get the chance to hold his child, who will never hear the cries of his junior. When our tears in front of people who do not care and our requests are ignored, the pain turns into demands. Demands to be heard and acknowledged. Demands to be treated like human beings whose lives and losses matter. And when the subject of decorum comes from someone who may have direct ties to the outcomes of this council, it becomes even more painful, because it tells us our tone matters more than our truth. Let me be clear. Scripture is not used to curse. Scripture is used to reveal reality. If you hear a verse and take it as a curse, that is between you and your God. You must ask yourself, why is a message about justice and accountability feeling like an attack? You want to talk about decorum, but you don't want to talk about brutality done to the bodies once carried by the loving mothers. I have stitches in my mouth right now, but I will not say it. I will choose to speak out. If I can stand here in my physical pain, you can sit here and hear the spiritual pain, the ache in my heart, just like many families like mine have to carry every day. Especially as I hear this, because I have to step up and be the father. I have to step in and take that opportunity that was taken away. We are scared every day, scared to go to the store, scared just to exist. And now I have a baby to grow up hearing stories about his father instead of feeling his father's arms. Because too many families have been told to calm down while their loved ones' names are dragged through the mud, because too many of you once fought in the same streets stood in the same advocate group and now act as if the very people you once stood by is a threat. Decorum is not silence. Decorum is accountability. And today you will hear us. We are not weaponizing faith. We are surviving through it, and we are standing on it. We are using spiritual recognition and our decorum of what's in our heart to speak the truth in a place where the truth has been ignored.
Ms. Parente, you have 3 minutes.
My name is Samantha. I've never introduced myself because I, quite frankly, have had a fear to come and speak to you guys. I also wrote it because it's just easier, but the reason why I've chose to stand as an ally for my sister and the other families is because 70% of you guys don't even look up from your screens. So I know you're not listening and it's not resonating, so I don't waste my time. To Aurora City Council, I want to respond clearly and respectfully and directly to the narrative being pushed about residents who have spoken during public comment. The people being criticized are not hijacking the meetings. They are a community of members using one of the few public avenues that we have available to raise our concerns directly to elected officials. Public comment exists for that exact reason, to allow residents, especially those who feel unheard, to speak truth to power. For many residents, city council is not the first place they've turned to. It's the place that they turned after all the other doors were closed. After all of our calls went unanswered and after all the systems failed us, we come to you guys. Council chambers have become the place people bring their grief to because too often there have been nowhere else left to take them in. When communities repeatedly ask for help and are ignored, emotion is not the problem. Emotion is the evidence of the problem. True decorum is not silence in the face of suffering. True decorum is listening with patience, responding with integrity, and treating residents with dignity, even if their words are difficult to hear. Attempts to paint speakers as bitter is dangerous or makes us uncivil, and it dismisses our legitimate grievances and shifts attention away from the issues being raised. Too often, criticism of tone becomes a substitute for accountability. City council should understand this plainly. When residents come before you grieving, frustrated, and demanding answers, it's because your chamber has become a place of where accountability lives. You are the body entrusted to hear what others would not listen to. Some speak of healing. I asked for healing too when my loved one was gunned down. The response was silence, the response was mockery, and the response was lies. There were no healing words, there were no prayers, there was no grace extended to my family when we needed it the most. Until you have to bury someone you love and hide the damage done to their body beneath clothing, you do not understand. Until you have to hold a new mother after grieving the birth of her first child and assure her she will survive the unimaginable, you do not understand. Until you have watched your child lose sleep, peace, and an appetite due to the trauma he had to witness caused by cowards carrying a badge, you do not understand. I implore you not to lecture grieving people about decorum while dismissing grief. Do not speak of healing while overlooking the wounded. Real decorum begins with compassion. Real leadership begins with listening. Do not mistake our grief, our anger, or our persistence with bitterness. We speak because we had to live what so many, luckily, just have to witness. Thank you guys so much.
Mr. Lewis?
So y'all speak about decorum, right? I hear people talk about colorful language. I hear people talking about what's good for what offends people and what does not. But when did truth overcome what is right? And when I say that, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. When did what is right overcome people's feelings, right? So, we have it where I've lost my little brother. I have to go in and chill with my nephews and they don't get to see their dad. They always talk about the things that they remember and the times that they wish they had. And in addition to seeing that, we do the best that we can to even tolerate this council. The people in this council, the people who are supposed to be who are mothers, who are fathers, right? The thing, I don't know y'all's history, but I can guarantee you that y'all have never been through what we have been through. Y'all don't have the loss of your son, of your brother, to where your nephews are like, I wish my dad was here. Y'all don't have it to where I have to come up here every other week to actually be positive in everything. The thing is, I'll say it and I'll say it again. I don't take any of this back. I read the scriptures. I'm not Catholic. I'm not Jehovah's Witness. I'm not any of that. I'm a follower of Yeshua, my Lord and Savior, who created me. But when you look into his scripture, right, he talks about casting curses. And I stick to that, say every last one of you that do not change from your wicked ways. I will never depart from that. Simply because the way you depart from your wicked way is stop upholding what is wrong in the world, right? So right now, I come to y'all not pleading anything. I just want you to realize that we are chosen. We are the Hebrew Israelites. We are the ones that the Most High speaks of in the scriptures, right? We don't say no phony prayers, no quick, oh Lord, thank you for this food, this water, and do the cross, whatever symbol and say, have a good day, amen. No, I stay diligently talking to my Father about every last one of y'all. And I have to pray, right? That he changes y'all hearts because it's not too late. But that day when it does become too late, there's no turning back, right? So the quorum, I don't care about nobody's personal speech and what they say or anything like that. It's what's in your heart. What are you really representing at the end of the day? Are you representing what is right? Are you representing what is just? Are you representing the people? Are you representing those who actually are sticking up for others because you've got a city council who is too timid to actually implement the powers that they do have? I remember first coming here, we always get told, well, we can't do this, we can't do that, we can't do this. And it's like, well, what can you do? But the thing is, the moment we take you out of your comfortability, y'all can't do nothing. It's nothing y'all can do. Right now, y'all stay in that comfort zone. That's fine. I just warned every last one of y'all that want to stay there. Stay there if you want to. Because the wrath is coming. It really is. People like, oh, I'm created by God's chosen. No, God didn't create people to not stand up for those who are poor and less fortunate. God didn't create any of us. If you're really a true follower of our Lord and Savior, you get in the mix of all of that and you stand up for what is right and what is just. You don't just sit there and say, oh, well, God created me. Nah, he created all of us, but we all have a choice. Who is really going to choose to follow? Right now, this decorum that y'all talk about and everything that this council represents, I'm not saying everybody here is bad. I'm not saying that at all. But I do know the ones who are comfort in their comfort zones that do not want to get outside of what is challenging. They don't want to get into that space. I thank Yahweh for the ones that have. I thank him so much for y'all. And the ones that don't, you know who you are. I don't have to call no names out. I know this for a fact. You know who you are. So as we keep navigating this fight, I'm standing here with not just the Sebron family, not just the Kylan family, not my best friend was murdered by Denver police, right? Brandon Cole, like I've had so many people die at the hands of law enforcement. But the thing is, I will not hate none of y'all. Simply because, according to the scriptures, I can never enter the kingdom of heaven with that type of heart. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the line. Oh, I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm so sorry. I'm so, sorry, y'all. I'm out. Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Are there questions from members of this panel?
I have a question. You had mentioned earlier regarding, this is kind of the last resort. What areas are you running? Who are you running into that's not giving you any information? Give me a list.
And the only people that we know to go to is the law enforcement, the law offices, the county offices. And you get nowhere, you go to city council. We are told that there are certain steps to take. And this is the step for Aurora. We have went to Todd Chamberlain. We have went to the chief of police. We have discussed with the office what this Lewis family, Ray John's family should be due and is not being heard or upheld because there's already laws in place that are not being upheld. So we come to city council and we have been speaking, they've been speaking for over 2 years. I've been coming for now over a year. So there is nobody else to turn to for us but this council. You're afraid to go to the law enforcement and they're the ones who took your family and is creating a false narrative. Who else can you go to?
Oh. Ms. Corrente, is that correct?
Corrente.
Corrente. You had mentioned that when you've wanted to come to council in the past, it wasn't an environment that you felt like you could speak. Are there, and you talked a little bit about, right, the not listening. So that's a clear one that I've heard. The not respecting folks. Are there things that we can do kind of from a positive side that not just in terms of individual behavior, but like in terms of our process toward the community? Are there things about the process that would create more of a space for community members to comment?
Yeah, I'm sure. I could probably think a little bit deeper behind that. I mean, I can speak to it for the space. When I walk into the space, you guys have these huge screens in front of you. It's just very intimidating. Eye contact has always been very important to me, being raised. It's just, it feels very unwanted, like you don't feel welcomed. And it was interesting because I got thrusted into an activist life, unfortunately, about a year and a half ago. And I have talked in front of a lot of people and a little bit of people, and the city council is probably the one that intimidates me the most. I've been to a few other, not meetings, but locations where a few city council members attended, and it was the same as this. It was very antagonistic, eye rolling. The spouses are commenting and throwing up their hands and stuff like that. So to request or expect to have truthfulness coming from the community, it's not going to happen from somebody and just being transparent because of that. I could go on and on about it, but I mean, really, that's my thoughts right now for it. Yeah.
Questions from members?
I have a question. Thank you all three for coming and speaking. You've really kind of painted maybe how decorum can be problematic, that comfort versus loss, and where's the space for emotions and grief within decorum and public invite is a big question on my mind. But for the three of you, I'm just curious. I have not lost a family member to the hands of the government. So I can't speak from that exact experience, but if you had a magic wand, what would you change? And is there anything that that would change, that would make you feel heard or sufficient, coming from the grief, coming from such a terrible situation, you know? Is there anything we could even do? And I know it's been a long journey. I know there's been fights. I know you all have been unheard. So help me to understand what's that bridge that's gonna make it feel better?
And to change as far as the council or?
Yeah, just the whole experience, public invite.
I mean, if I had a magic wand, I'd have my son back.
Absolutely.
I'd have a fellow brother back. Ray John was a distant cousin to my children. I'd have them back if I had a magic wand. But to be in this situation over what I've been addressed with and when I'm addressing, I would change the hearts and the minds of the city council and remind them that they're human. They once was on the other side of that podium. The lack of listening, the consistency of being in the phone. I've taken several classes. I've been to college. I'm pretty smart. I've worked in HR, customer service. The first line is eye contact, engagement, nodding of the head. Maybe during the council, if there's a question, the council can address back to show that they are listening. Because sometimes I want to council to repeat any major point that I've said, just to know they took in one thing.
I think for me, it's probably very in line with my sister. The lack of empathy, right? I think there's sorrow behind somebody being murdered, but it's so much deeper than that. Like, my son has nightmares. He's 21. Are you okay? Are you okay?
Taylor,
No, you seemed like, I didn't know if I was interrupting you or if I was bothering you. I'm trying
Has
to,
nothing to do with,
but you're making yourself inserted.
I'm sorry,
You're inserting yourself.
I'm
into
not
something.
inserting anything. That's in
Okay.
your imagination, lady.
No, you don't need
Yes.
to be
Please
theatrical.
stop.
Okay. This is the exact person I was referring to that comes to the meetings that causes the chaos and it makes it what it doesn't need to be. Ma'am, please, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to you. So,
I think she was mentioning not council meetings. Yeah, let's.
anyways, so empathy. Empathy. And I worked with your daughter and it shocks me that this is who her parents are. So, thank you so much.
that magic wand, but also to be able to put that grief that I feel, that hurt, into their heart. So maybe the way that the words are being heard would be heard different. Instead of automatically with this wall put up. There's an automatic wall which causes this discomfort for public to even come. Not once have I addressed this council by cursing, yelling, antagonizing, name calling, not once. But I still get the same treatment that you have said, that you have given Mr. K-Dot, Mr. Kylan Lewis, or Kylan. I still get the same exact treatment, and I've never disrespected at all. Samantha has never disrespected.
Say that many times, you know, your words and tonight, all three of you about the experience of loss. As much as it's possible to feel that, that's the, you know, what sits with me is what would it feel like to be in. So I do appreciate that that's the purpose of coming and sharing in the way you do. It's helpful to think about, right? Could we provide feedback? We have to be cautious about how we do that, to be honest. But could we come provide feedback in a way that, you know, that people feel heard, even if we don't have an answer? So that's helpful. for you all to just share that. Ms. Hancock?
Maybe I don't know, that we as council are not allowed to engage in comments when people come to the dais, to the well, to address the council. We're not allowed to say.
That's currently how the rules are written, and that's
So-
part of the conversation here.
So
Do we
that-
want to change that?
Right, so that may or may not be a good thing, depending on the type of comments that are made, because, you know, some comments are inflammatory, and I respect the fact that most folks, except for Kevin and others, come to the well and they speak respectfully. You don't have to, you know, it's okay. I've buried people too. I grew up in gang culture and in the city of Pittsburgh, so I know straight, real gangster, okay? So you know, I can't feel your pain, but I know what it's like to be a mother, to deal with your children and things happen. I respect what you have to say. I don't know that the proper role, and we're talking about decorum, the proper role of government, what we're supposed to do. You know, currently, we're not allowed to address people. The proper role of government is to handle issues overall. The proper role of government is not to be in a position of saying we grieve. That's not the governmental function. And so when people try to assign that to a governmental function, it sounds callous, but that's how the government works. We can't, as a government representative of the government, while we may personally feel some way about something, that doesn't mean that as in my role as a city council person representing 67,000 people on my board, that I'm grieving or mourning or having emotional experiences representing the government. That's not appropriate. That's not an appropriate role for the government. Now, I've talked to your mom. We had a one-on-one conversation when this thing first happened. You know, that is to the extent me personally that I could do. But as far as my role as a city council person, we have to follow the rules that dictate how we operate. And it may not be something that people like, but it's what the rules are. So that's what this, I'm understanding that this is what we're supposed to be doing, trying to see if we want to amend those to be able to do that. Now, there's always trade-offs involved, in the words of Thomas. So if we do this, then it could devolve into something that nobody really wants. So we have to think carefully before we decide what we do here, because it could go sideways and it could be really painful for everybody.
And I think that will bring us to our 4B, which is the council member decorum and council member conduct, because technically this is about the general public. And so we have it separated into two areas. So I think when we get to that one, we can hear more about that, but I do know that Ms. Sebron has indicated a response. So
Which I understand, and I do know your background, because I do my research on everybody that I speak to beforehand. So again, I'm sorry for your loss that you have suffered in. But remember the things that you went through as far as burials, the heartache, the lack of false thoughts. Inconsiderate, but considerate thoughts that people say because they don't know what else to say. You know? And I understand that is, now I'm understanding that is a rule. I could have been full because that is how most of the confrontations go at council meetings. There is bickering back and forth. So I was not aware that council cannot say anything back. And if they can't say anything back, I think they should hold their body gestures, their breathing of in and out, because body language speaks more than verbal language. So if it needs to be just there and talking to stone walls, then that's what it is, I guess. But it can be also revisited on a website, right? Make a letter and response up. It doesn't have to be right then and there. It could be another meeting upcoming. The response does not have to be immediate. But at least take something, let me know that you even thought about what I said. You even went home. It's not just a say. It only matters when you're in that seat. Because it doesn't just matter to me when I'm at that podium. I have to leave here and go take care of a grandkid. I have to leave here and make sure another mother is okay. I check on these other mothers. My son was not killed in your county again, but I stand here with your county because you guys just see that Aurora has an issue. The people are tired. Respect is not given on either side. So let's, as leaders, show by leadership. Show that respect, and it can also be given back too.
Are you able to address Douglas County?
The Douglas County does not have a council team. They only have a board of commissioners, at which I did address them.
They actually eliminated public comment.
Yep, so, if everyone's okay, we'll just take one last round of comment from the panelists, not from members, and then we'll have a discussion. Any last comments from the panelists? Thank you all so much for taking the time to be here, to share. I think actually there were a number of really good ideas that came forward of, and thoughts that we can consider of how we create a forum. All right. So on 4A, in terms of decorum from the public, you've heard from the commenters that came to attend. We also did receive about 52 pages of comment. A lot of it was of surveys. A lot of it was focused on what we can do as a council, which we can talk about in 4B. But some of the items I think can also fit in this section, which is identifying what do we do after public invited to be heard, right? When we have an agenda item, what we do is we make the decision on the item and we give our justifications at that time. But when we're on non-agenda items, I understand the concern about the idea of lack of responsiveness. And that doesn't mean we have to have an emotional response of I feel you or anything of that nature. But I do wonder if we could, for example, like recess, and each member could have the opportunity, not the requirement, but the opportunity after like a brief recess prior to the rest of the meeting to just think about kind of a digesting, these are some things I heard, to then share back. And so not arguing, not disrespecting, maybe not even having any kind of sentimental response, just these are the issues that we heard about. Or maybe it's designated to the mayor, right? We identify some way to either come back at that time or at another time and just provide these are the items that we heard about.
Well, so I think unless we haven't done this in a while, but I believe that what we've done, I don't know if it's in the form of rule or it's just informal, that at the end of public invited to be heard, then members can comment on anything. We haven't done that in a while.
It says council may clarify statements
Yeah.
and may not engage in debate.
True.
And may request follow-up, contact information from staff to provide follow-up.
Hey, Ruben.
Yeah.
So what I would say is, my advice would be, there's a reason why elected bodies don't have the dialogue back and forth, not because they don't want to hear from the individuals, but we're human, right? Every the council members are human. You could have the best rules in the world, but if somebody gets a button pushed, that can turn south pretty fast. So my advice is, if you guys are looking to see what you can do to have the empathy and the response, be clear about it up front, right? Whether that's the mayor or me, when I get up there at the city attorney to say, hey, please keep your comments limited to things that are not on the agenda, whatever that is. If we have, I think those are great for town halls. I think they're great for board meetings. I think they're good to have that dialogue, but you run the risk of at one time, right, where things go awry. And that would be and that's why most bodies do not have the back and forth with the electeds during public comment, because we want to keep that separation. But I think you guys should establish some sort of rule that makes that clear, right? That this is why we're not doing it. It's not because we're not listening. It's not that we don't care. It's just that we have to be able to move on with the meeting and not have any disruption that could be caused by council members. I'm not saying it's coming from the public, but we saw that in the past, right?
I think it's always been a problem with council members wanting to go back and forth.
Yeah.
And interrupt the speaker. And so that's inappropriate. But I do think that those comments relative to conduct is better coming from you than from me.
I mean, and I will not, here's my thing, I will not chastise anybody that's doing it. I will be more than happy to, as I've kind of just started with the public comments, it's like, I'm the neutral one, right? I'm just trying to protect your right to be heard and be in the record. That's up for you guys to tell. If you guys tell me to do it, I'll do it. Well, that's necessarily my rule. I'm not gonna police the conduct at all.
No, but I think just
Maybe the
making a
rule.
statement up front, making a statement. I think coming from the city attorney, that's more than coming from the mayor.
Wow.
I guess you got a promotion there, Pete.
No, gosh, no, I
but,
object.
So
You
I
can
guess
be that guy.
Fair enough.
I understand your point, and again, I'm not encouraging back and forth. And I do think a recess would be required, because like people, right, we are humans and people may need a minute to regulate. But whether it's at that time or in some other form, I do think because the public invited isn't followed by a decision from council, that it would be helpful to have some type of forum. I'm open to what that forum might.
How about a built-in 10-minute recess following public comment? And that way people, if they do want to go down and engage, I can say that up front, it's like, look, if you guys that are speaking in public comment, council members may want to come off the dais and speak with you. So please wait and stay until after, because we'll have a 10-minute recess. And sometimes, and no requirement, right? Because I think that works, because that allows people to go use the restroom if they need to. But I think you put that in the rule and we can be very clear.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
There
After
shall
public-
be a 10
There shall be a 10 minutes, so please stick around if you.
And then after we can do like a reflection if we choose.
I think you could do that in reports, because I think the problem you get into is whatever's on the agenda, we may have other people that are waiting to present, on their agenda items. So I'm not trying to dismiss, but I think having that 10-minute built in, it's set in stone based on your rules, right? Hey, we're gonna have at least 10 minutes.
I think that's
And
I
that
think
way,
that's good, but I think on council reports, you're free to do whatever you want.
you can say whatever, yeah.
I did just hear, the call for, like sharing the burden. It sounded like there's an us versus them dynamic, people not feeling heard. So that's where I feel like an immediate, if you choose reflection, like when we have 10 students that come up to talk about, the Aurora Saves program, like, can we just say, okay, we hear you, we see you. So I don't know, but
Yeah, and
we
I'll
can do it in reports, but the people will be gone by then, most likely.
sure, I think that's why the 10-minute period would be important to go down, because I think, like the
Oh,
percent.
to go down.
Yeah.
I see.
That's what,
Okay,
so we would take,
okay.
it would be immediately after public comment, we would have a 10-minute break. We'd only probably do that. I don't know, you guys have to decide whether you want to do it in both public comments, maybe just the first.
Well, because the last one is right before report.
Yeah, so we can,
Right, so you just do reports, right? So you do that, then they have the opportunity, then it's really personal,
that makes sense. Okay.
right? That would be my idea, and then that way you guys can go down and have the conversations and I'll tell you, I always struggle. You guys too, you guys can put the best rules forward, but you're never going to control the conduct of your colleagues. You're just not, because they have their own elected body, their own elected office. And so, yeah, I agree. It would be great if everybody wasn't on their phone or doing it whatever and listening, but
Yeah.
all you can do is
I
make a
hear you.
request,
Okay, that
right?
makes sense. I thought it was like
No.
a
It's
processing break, but I hear it. Like we can go down,
could be both.
follow up.
well, you don't have to go down, but again, if you choose to.
Okay.
And it may be something that is dear to your heart, that maybe not dear to another council member. So, but I think again, it's built in, like it's not that the mayor calls it, it's built into your rules. And I can say that if you have me do the reform statement at the beginning going, hey, this is what this is. We're gonna have a 10-minute recess. This is what it is. And again, going back to KDOT's comment, it's like, I will never advise, and we put it in the reform statements we'll get to, that you can't use profanity, but we probably will say we prefer if you do not. That is completely fine. there's no penalty if you do it, but we would ask you prefer that you do not. And so that's kind of where we are. And so,
And then another item that was raised in the survey was by a few people was for council to be available to also greet people as they enter the meeting so that people don't just first see you up there, you know, on the dais in the impersonal sort of situation as Ms. Carenti mentioned. And so I do wonder if we could try to like schedule our study sessions and exec sessions so that there's at least time available for that. I know that makes it hard because we already,
we're up
you
to
know,
the wire.
we're here for a long time.
I'm cutting debate off just to get on schedule, and so, and try and do that earlier.
We may be starting a lot earlier today. We've heard some feedback from your colleagues that the more earlier we start during the day, the harder it is with work and everything else. So,
Right.
yeah, we'll do what we can.
I think that's discretionary. I mean, if you
Yeah.
want to.
I just wanted to note that as another item that was mentioned in terms of just again, that like humanizing the interaction because it does set a tone.
With that, so you're not thinking of making that poll?
I don't know that we can because of the schedule
Yeah.
conflict.
I think it was.
At least not this year. I think we should have a conversation about going back to having study session and council meetings on alternate weeks so that we're not always in that rush. But that's not a meeting that's not a discussion for this meeting because
I have a hard time making
we,
it.
because we don't, have the ability to just change the calendar. We have to have a unanimous vote. I thought it was calendar changes are unanimous, once we've set the calendar.
You're right, unanimous council meetings. I mean,
Yeah.
you could make them virtual with study sessions, but.
Yeah. But anyway, that's a separate discussion, not for today, and we do have a number of other items to get to. So out of respect for folks' time, we'll move forward, but that's just one that came up that I thought was valid, is if we can, talking to folks before. Greeting folks before the meeting. Okay, so in the interest of time, I am gonna go ahead and have all the speakers that signed up for 4B come up as one panel, which was 4 speakers, and then we'll do the Q&A. So that's Mr. Ayante Anderson, Mr. K. Dot, Ms. Samantha Correnti, and Ms. Veronica Zebra. Three minutes per person, yeah, for this portion. This is on the city council member decorum. And so some of the things that we have had come forward in the survey are that council members should have additional forms of censure available above and beyond just our kind of symbolic censure process, but actually could be suspended from meetings, removed from committees, have travel budgets and other types of sanctions put in place for violation of decorum. And that decorum, right? What does decorum mean for council? I think is the other kind of general topic of discussion, right? What should be the expectation of council as the people setting the tone for the meeting and the conduct of the meeting?
Before we go there real quick, so on 4A, it sounds like I didn't hear any objection from the members for the 10-minute recess following public invited. Do you want me to draft that as part of the next?
And then I think the other thing we have to include is the prior conversation about if folks consistently, members of the public consistently violate the rules,
Right.
right? If they're warned, maybe we say 3 warnings and then a suspension from being in the chambers, but not from being in the building, right? That they could be in the lobby watching, but they can't comment or be in the chambers if there's a repeated violation. Again, we will have a meeting next Monday as a listening session on decorum that folks can, or not next Monday, sorry, Monday the 11th, as well as our final meeting of this body on May 21st, as well as the study session and a council meeting for as we're making and bringing forward these rules, additional options to comment on that, for A. But if you can draft those so that we have those available.
Yes, all right, so
For
draft.
comment, and if other folks have anything, that wasn't in the minutes, from the last meeting that you'd like for the city attorney to draft as our draft recommendations that we're gonna discuss on the 11th. And then make a final decision of this body on the 21st, and then go to the full council. Please email, or you can also take the survey and add it to the survey, or if it's members of this body, please email myself and the city attorney for any additional recommendations on public comment or decorum recommendations. Both expectations of conduct and sanctions for conduct. But with that said, now we have 4B, which is on city council member conduct. So it's already refrain from personal attacks, stay on the topic of the conversation, are the main kind of overarching and professional.
3 minutes. And 10 minutes, how long is the discussion after that? So we can-
We'll do 15, just because we're approaching time. And so, yeah, so debate, decorum, focus on the issues, no attacks of a personal nature. And it should be the role of the mayor to redirect. And then the censure was up before, but right, censure is very formal and very symbolic at this time. So if there are sanctions that folks would consider, as well as expectations of conduct that folks would consider to raise in your comment.
And really quickly, too, I mean, maybe you guys would like to hear, I mean, as the parliamentarian for council, is it appropriate for me to state the rule, right? The rules in the beginning, whether that would be better coming from me or the mayor, I don't know. I'd like to get some feedback from the public too, if they want to state anything about that. I just,
Okay. in
That's okay
terms
with
of
you,
How
yeah.
we
how do we get this?
remind of the council.
As me as the
decorum.
impartial parliamentarian, or like, I don't have a dog in the fight, I'm just the appointee, right, up here saying what it is, right?
And are we talking about the decorum statement?
Not the decorum statement, just the rules and, or the decorum statement, I don't know, it
Right.
could include all that, yeah. But just feedback, it'd be nice to, I don't know what the public would like,
That's all. Okay, so
I'll be
we'll
fine.
go ahead and start. I'm just gonna go in the order that folks are here on the stack. So Mr. Anderson, you'll be first.
Great, thank you for having, I think, this conversation. I think that over the last 2 years, we've seen behavior unbecoming of elected officials from the Aurora City Council and the mayor. I definitely know that I was a target of one of the Facebook posts of the mayor saying that I had moved to the city and was planning some sort of takeover. That's not happened. I know that Medina was a target or a frequent target on the mayor's social media post. I know that the mayor had also we had a very spirited engagement after a council meeting that I would say that was inappropriate. And I even know that there have been comments from Councilmember Hancock at the beginning of our arrival at City Council, calling us terrorists, provocateurs, etc., anarchists. And then I could spend 30 minutes talking about one of your former council members that shall not be named. The voters fired her, don't need to talk about her. But even past all of that, even there being time between the incidents that I just mentioned and now, even just the engagement sometimes at council meetings, I think I mentioned it a few weeks ago, your mics are still on. Please, like, I would definitely advise all council members, unless it's the mayor, to turn your mic off. Especially knowing that there are several of folks on council that are oppositional to the voices that you hear. Being able to then go back and listen to the live stream, and then you're hearing the conversations y'all are having on the mic while we are talking. That, I think, adds to that piece of decorum that we definitely should have from our elected officials. Some of the engagement back and forth at times between members of council who have disagreements and will start speaking when another person is speaking at the public time, or the public invited to be heard time, I think is inappropriate as well. And so moving forward, it is my hope that when those spaces are breached, when those, when individuals are now being called out or attacked or whatever the word you want to use, unjustly, and it is not based in a policy debate. It is now based in a, we're going after each other again, on political differences. That's when I would encourage council to enact sanctions or censure, or whatever that may be. Ultimately, the fate of that individual is up to their electorate. But definitely, I believe that the silence is an endorsement of one's actions. When the council refuses to acknowledge, hey, that was actually inappropriate, that was across the line for us as elected officials, heard your alarm. That is when you don't say anything, the silence endorses that person's action.
Right, Mr. Cahill.
Yes, I wanted to point out a few things. Yeah, so as far as the decorum, we need to be consistent, not about each other's parties, but about we the people. That's who you represent. You don't represent a party. Represent the people. And the people are. Also, I'll have to step off the pew. I'll piggyback off of Mr. Tay here. Yeah, I don't think it's quite polite of you to, especially Mr. Mayor, and you have was speaking and anybody else is speaking. If I issue threats, which I never did, it never will, because it never made me go through that. I'm way more intelligent than you think I am, if you simply have a conversation. But interrupting my speech with your gavel is completely inconsiderate. It doesn't show compassion. It doesn't show a sign of escalation of leadership. It shows escalation and tyranny. That's what it shows. Also you, Ms. Hancock, as I was speaking, when I allowed you to speak, at these future meetings that we will continue to have and continue to have conversation, I would prefer you not interrupt me while I'm speaking, because I didn't do it to you. And you speak about respect and all this type of stuff, and you clearly didn't show that. And it's for the record. Regardless of what you said and I didn't like or agree or whatever, I allowed you to speak. At the end of the day, I didn't interrupt you. Not only that, I call out, like what he had said, the whole, didn't even apologize to my family about what you said, as far as the whole, actually voted against it. So you actually condone your behavior as far as name calling. The same exact name calling that you accused me of. So that's where your actions are hypocritical. You said provocateurs, antagonists, and terrorists. Completely not true. Completely opinion-based, and you didn't de-escalate at all. All you did was escalate that situation, and you never apologized.
Thank you, Mr. Cahill. Ms. Corrente?
Alarm scares me.
Sorry.
No, it's me. I probably spoke a lot about it at my last speech, so I won't say much this time and give my time back to you guys, but I think everybody that I've interpreted has decorum a little bit different. Again, I've done a little bit of activism work, and I be cussing like a sailor out my neck sometimes. And that's my spirit at that moment. Other times, I think it's respectful to show respect, because I want respect and I want my words to land properly. And if I had any advice, that would be the advice that I would give, because that's what I give my kids, and not that any of your children by any means, but I'm sure many of you probably have children, and I think me saying that will resonate with you on a different level than saying, you better effing listen to me because I'm in pain and I'm angry and this is all I have. This is my only way of getting it out of or off my spirit. So, for the rest of the day.
Thank you so much. Ms. Sebron?
I'm gonna start by saying every action has a reaction. The reaction has retaliation. The reaction and retaliation is looked at the most, but it's the action that started it. Like I've said before, I'm fresh into Aurora and only just over a year and a half. I have seen not just only in council meetings, the body language, the antagonizing, the eye rolling, and the under the breath, just as well as from the public. But again, when you're in leadership, you lead by example. You also lead by understanding the heart of the speaker and allowing at least some room just by human courtesy and sympathy for what they're going through. Now, I don't condone the back and forth, the threatening, but like Deontay said, mics have been on. Just because what you say is not as loud as what the public said, it's still heard. I have heard nasty comments from almost each council member up there. Even if they don't lash out, which they often do, I've heard it on the playback. It is hurtful. As a mother, as a citizen, just trying to come and make a change. Because all of us leave our counties. All of us travel from county to county. So again, it becomes a border. But Aurora, let's be the first. Let's lead. Let's be the first before Denver. Let's be the first before Douglas. Let's be the first in Colorado to have that community support, that advocacy. Remember, before you guys got to these positions, how hard you worked, the doors you knocked on, the phone calls you made to get where you're at. You remember that? You remember the hangups, the door slams, and how that made you feel? I'm sure you all have went back and cursed and frustration. Remember that you're human. Because I think that has been lost with the seats that you have taken. It is now just a title and a duty to sit there. I've seen some changes in Aurora Council, but it also looks like an act. So let's just remember where you came from and the hardship you had to deal with. And none of those came from the grief and loss of burying a child, from the loss that suffered. And so just hear us out and give the action that needs and you want to be deserved in the reaction.
Thank you. All right, any questions from members? I think it was very helpful, the reminder about our mics and the interrupting and the tone and the body language. Just a helpful reminder to us. Mr. Anderson, have a question or comment?
Yeah, I just also wanted to just like state that there have been several times, I want to at least say 4 or 5 times, where y'all have almost lost Medina and I from coming to your council meetings, which would have been great for, I think, y'all, and saved us time. But it has been the actions upon of members of the council and on those of the dais that keep us coming back. Legit, like this is not like a lie or anything. Where Medina and I have walked out of this building, we've said, we want to make sure that we allow the process to do what it needs to do from those that are doing other things to seek justice for their family. But it has been your actions that continue to draw us back in. And that is a space where I think that needs to be said, is that understanding when you all have heard the message for 2 years. You probably know at this point, anytime that we gonna get up where you know exactly what we're gonna say, almost verbatim. You probably could give us a speech, write the speech for us at this point. But knowing that it's those small things, it's the eye rolls, it's the comments in the microphone, it's the Francois putting her head down and lifting up her face and then rolling her eyes and making faces at folks. And then when somebody says something to her, she starts shouting. It's those sort of things. That's like, okay, clearly the message isn't, you haven't heard the message enough. So I got to keep coming back every 2 weeks. I'll be honest with you. I don't like driving over here. I don't. I honestly do not like coming to see y'all every other Monday now, almost every Monday. But it is because of the back and forth it's almost I have to keep coming back because clearly it's not landing. And then a quick side tangent, and I would be also happy to give this up, is that second hour of public comment at the end. I think that there is a valuable resource in that. But there's been a consistent theme of youth coming to your council meeting. And I think it might be a time to take that second hour and actually apply it. This might make your council meetings go a little bit longer into the evening. But I would actually start doing a youth hour of public comment that's specifically for Aurora youth. So they don't have to compete with people that have issues with the pothole. They don't have to compete with all of the other issues, but you have these groups that are coming to you that are young people that want to be heard. And instead of them, hit or miss, can they get on the agenda or the speaking list or not? You move that hour at the beginning up and push the public invited to be heard back an hour. And then even if they don't show up, but at least you offer the time to make space for those young people. I think it's been a consistent theme in your council meetings that they need their own spot to be able just to engage with council that doesn't feel like, well, that was intense. I come after us, you come after us and you're a young person talking about some issue that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. And they may change their comments or views or may feel differently or even going beforehand. But I think they deserve a dedicated time with you all. Sorry, that was not even on the topic, but I just wanted to make sure I spoke it in.
Back to the prior topic, and I think we can, without objection, add it to the draft ideas of what we do for public comment.
I was gonna say, we can combine those. We can take the second one off and put it in the beginning and have youth first, and then you guys can go after. That way the youth feel empowered.
I think you all would like to see us go at 7 o'clock, and I think we don't have, that also eliminates Medina and I that stay through the meetings, right? And then there's a handful of others, but I think putting that to the people of saying, hey, we're gonna eliminate this other hour at the end for the kids. I don't see anybody arguing going toe to toe with the kids.
Just so let me get your thoughts too. So 17 and under, right? 18 and older would go regular.
I would say 18 and under. People are still in high school when they're
Okay,
18.
okay.
Yeah, so high school students.
High school or 17 and under.
Just say high school students, right? Because there are also some students who are in high school for longer for.
Oh, I got you.
So.
Okay, so students, right? You,
Yeah.
okay, so students that are, okay. And
For the first hour.
for the first hour, and then whatever we don't use, we can just roll into the other public comment. We don't, yeah.
And then get that at the end.
We have done at the end. Okay.
Thank you for
That's
that
great.
idea, sir. All right. Mr. KDOT?
If I'm, on a serious note, I know we had our back and forth, and I know how we personally feel about each other. But professionally, and as a taxpayer of the city, and of the person who also helps represent the city, because I'm very highly respected in the city. I do want each and everybody in this room, as far as the elected officials, from the city managers, from the city attorneys, I am rooting for y'all. There's never, even when me cussing you guys out, that I ever want you guys to lose. Because if you lose, the people lose at the end of the day. We just want to be heard. That's it. We just want to be heard. Mr. Mayor, I do want you to win. But you gotta come to the table and talk to us about that, what that looks like. Unveiling that. Ms. Hancock, come to the table. We don't like each other, and that's fine. But I do want you to win. Because at the end of the day, those 2 or 3 o'clock, those 2 o'clock phone calls that I get about police misconduct, I've wiped tears from those mothers' eyes. From those kids' eyes. You're not in those rooms. That's where all that fire and passion comes from. It doesn't come from just anywhere. These people are hurting. You have to understand, I'm in the streets with these people, not just with the people, but with the police. There's several police officers who came to me and told me, well, I can't do that because there's gonna be retaliation. As far as whistleblowing, why don't we have integrity awards for officers?
You know, I apologize.
I'm
That
sorry,
is a
I'm
good
sorry,
idea.
I'm sorry, my bad.
And like,
That's it.
let's have a separate conversation on that.
I just want y'all in. That's it. Please win for the people. That's it. I'm sorry.
Any further questions on this panel?
About this, I would also just ask about decorum of council members, just acknowledge that not just acknowledge that you do have a platform that is going to reach more people than anybody that comes to public comment. Regardless, whether it's on social media or at a council meeting, your platform, your words are going to always have a broader platform than those who come before you. And the mentality for when folks are coming to you shouldn't be a tit for tat of like, oh, they said something I didn't agree with, so now let me use the power of my office to issue a press release or do this or do that or the third. It shouldn't be about, I need to score a win or I need to, people have to hear I disagree with them. It is, hey, I do disagree. And you can say I disagree with this viewpoint, but this is the way that these are the things that I do think that have been said that I could be able to do differently. I definitely think that when we are talking about police violence, I understand that you're in a situation that's like for a school board member. If somebody comes up as a school board member and they're like, well, we want a personnel issue with this teacher and we demand the Board of Education do X, Y, and Z. There are definitely times where the teachers union would demand the school board do something that the school board would say, we cannot do that because we know that we are going to be possibly in litigation with that individual, and that compromises us as a district. However, there would definitely be times where as a school board member, where I could go to a teacher and say, look, I can't talk about your case, but I can at least, or talk about your grievance that you have with the district, but I at least can empathize with you and just say, I want you to know I hear you. And that goes a long way to at least feel that you are being acknowledged. It can go a long way being able to invite all of those families in that have been impacted by police violence, and to say, you know what, let's have a roundtable with you all. Let's figure out where we have failed systemically as a system in order to be able to change. Because I went back and looked, even after Elijah McClain, everybody had different individual statements, but I don't believe there was a collective action as a city to say, we went through the process, the jury spoke, that this is their decision. Shanique McClain and the family of Elijah McClain, let's have conversations about how we can change as a system. And those are the things I think that you all have to just remember is Whenever your name is signed, council member, mayor, city attorney, city manager, that comes with a different weight than Ayante Anderson is now going to speak for 3 minutes. Then Medina Schaffner speaks for 3 minutes. Then LaRonda Jones speaks for 3 minutes. And I think that there's spaces even in disagreement where we can say systemically, we can figure out where we can come together, even without compromising our ability to defend ourselves or our employees.
Any further questions? Thank you so much for taking the time for speaking. I do see that Ms. Medina and Ms. LaRonda are online. And I didn't think we were gonna have virtual public comment, but since we have a relatively limited number of folks and they are online, if there's no objection from members, I would allow them each 3 minutes to provide comment on councilmember decorum. All right, so
Are they permitted to unmute themselves?
if they're allowed to unmute, we can start with Ms. Medina and then Ms. LaRonda.
Well, thanks so much for the opportunity. Are you all able to hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity to chime in. I've been listening essentially for the entire session. I'm just gonna take some of my time to formally acknowledge the power of the voices that are there. Veronica Sebron, you awe me every time you speak. And so, sis, I just want to applaud you for your ambition, for your discernment, and for your honesty. Samantha, you every time touch my spirit, and the way that you lean in with gentleness and fierceness in a combination is absolutely incredible. So thank you for standing in that space, because I know that you are echoing the mothers and the families that we are building community around. So for the council, I do want to say that there is absolutely opportunity here for there to be something that is curated that can look much differently than it has before. I will also say that I heard terms like compromise, and what I am imploring that everyone take a moment to do is to break down the walls of the defensiveness that are clearly still in the room. This is not a time to be defensive. We are now in a moment of collaboration. We don't have to like each other. We don't have to agree on lived experiences or worldview. But what we have an opportunity to do is to collaborate. And that is going to require that everyone speak into this space with honesty, but also with acknowledgement that there is room for us to hold truths and to reconcile in a space that currently does not have trust. I have to admit that I am not highly hopeful that we have leadership amongst everyone that is sharing in that space right now to do that. But I will stand in expectancy that each and every one of us, myself included, find a way to figure out what does collaboration look like. When you talk about pain of community, that is a level of expertise that I can assure you that no one wants. Veronica Sebron has an expertise in that room that no one wants to sign up for. When LaRonda Jones speaks, she has an expertise that none of us want to sign up for. And if we as a body of people cannot leave room and deem them as the experts, then we are failing them, we are failing ourselves, and we are failing the joy of those that come beyond us. So when we talk about decorum, this is not just about a step-by-step or a checklist of rule. Decorum requires that we understand that there is an interconnectedness that we cannot get away from. So it is my hope that we are able to collaborate and come up with innovative opportunities for there to be engagement, thoughtful engagement, and for this to look differently. The power has always been with the people, And no matter if you are elected or not, at the end of the day, you are also the people. So understand that this is not us versus them. This is what are we going to do in this time.
Thank you, Ms. Medina. Now, Ms. LaRonda, you have 3 minutes.
Yes, hi everyone. So I've been listening also, and I second everything that Medina said. And thank you, everybody who is there seated at the table and that is speaking their truth. But I want to bring out, um, for me personally, I don't want to be in this seat that I am, but I'm forced to be because that is my truth. That's my realization that my son is no longer here. And for me, my justice looks like that for public safety, for Rob to hold, for me personally, I can't speak for nobody else, for Rob to hold and city council members to hold the rural police accountable, and not only a slap on the wrist, which they don't get anyway, but to be reprimanded. And as for, I listened to Miss Hancock talk as well. The meeting that we had together, um, it was powerful, but it was not brought through from the words that was said privately in that room. And also what she said about council member cannot talk back to the people. Well, I'm here to say again, correction on that, because I don't had and seen several members talk back, interrupt in hatred, in frustration, in madness. So they talk when it's feasible for them. They talk back when it's feasible to them to talk back, when they feelings is hurt or when they feel like they have to defend themselves or their character in front of public. But that's all that shouldn't even matter at this point. What should matter is that we come together to come up with change, because we all know the system is flawed. We as people are human and we do make mistakes. But the important part is that we learn from the mistakes and we do better. And I think this is a time that we can make these things happen if we only work together, not people having attitudes or happy when they feel like it, when everything's going their way or they hear what they want to hear and that makes them feel comfortable. But it's time to be uncomfortable. This is not the time to be comfortable. It's time to be uncomfortable, because when you're uncomfortable, you're going to do what it takes to get things done, and hopefully done the right way. We all should be standing on the side of justice at all times. It doesn't matter what color we are, because to me, all lives matter. And that's what I stand for. And that's what I'm fighting for, that all lives matter. And we all have a part to do. We all have a work to do. And if we do it together, we can get it done faster and we can get it done the right way where it will stand and stick. And that means holding the people accountable who need to be held accountable and giving praise to the one that deserve the praise. That's what I will say on that. And I appreciate you guys listening um, to me today. But I hope that you hear me and move in action and not just say words. But I want to see action done as we come
Thank you,
together.
Ms. LaRonda.
Hmm.
Appreciate you and appreciate everyone coming. Thank you for the folks on this panel again for your additional comments. On that, we'll talk about kind of the next steps for the council member decorum piece. And then if everyone's okay, we may need to asynchronously revise the decorum statement, because we're getting close to the end of time. And then we can just put back.
We only noticed till 7:30, right?
Yep.
So we gotta be careful. So next time, let's do 5:30 on, expected to last at least 7:30.
Okay,
Because right now, if we do anything, it's technically outside the time it was posted, so we really can't. We can talk about what's put into the draft at the time.
Right.
But we can't approve anything.
Which is all this is. There's
Right.
no,
Fair enough.
there's
Just-
no
yeah.
action item.
Thank you,
But just
everybody.
so everybody know and
Right.
yeah.
So, yeah, we'll do
Yeah,
that
we'll fix that.
asynchronously. We'll put it on the next agenda for the decorum statement.
Okay.
We'll just put a draft, for approval. But for council decorum for the draft next time, we had talked about potential sanctions that were included in the survey, so that could include suspension from meetings, suspension or removal from committees, and removal of travel budget.
Yeah, I gotta be careful. So the only time that we can suspend somebody from a meeting would be exec session if they
Okay.
violate.
Oh, right.
We can't suspend from the regular meetings because it's their office. They have to be able to
Okay.
participate, but we can exclude. And again, that would probably be for disclosing items that are discussed in executive session to the public. The sanction could be, you know what, congratulations, you don't get to be in the sessions now.
And what about for committees? If you
Committee, same thing. Yeah, you could cut, I mean, they could come to the meetings, but you can cut their
You could certainly remove them as chair.
chair or vice chair. You can also remove them from the committee and just say, you're not a voting member. You can come to the meeting, but you can't vote.
Okay.
Pete and I talked about this.
Yeah.
The issue with, again, and the reason we can do that is because nothing is decided at policy committee.
Right.
So it's, so again, you can go up to removing them from it, just that's removing their sort of input to it. But again, we can't keep them coming from a council meeting because that's wrong.
So it's because it's that they have that right, no matter what their conduct is and ballot boxes. So.
Okay, that's helpful. And then in terms of just the actual conduct, as we have already, refraining from personal attacks. And maybe we add in attacks of a personal nature on other members or members of the public. As well as there's used to be, and maybe it's still somewhere and I'm missing it, but behaving with professionalism and respect. Or maybe it is there and all this.
And kind of what I was thinking as you guys are all talking about, it's like, I still think my advice would be to not allow back and forth, but let's have a process. You do it once and say, oh, we get emotional, you get a warning from the mayor, right?
Right.
Hey, that's your one warning for 3 months, whatever that time period you want it to be. If you do it again within 3 months, then you're subject to potential consequence. I mean, I guess it gives everybody a freebie to have, if you guys want that, I'm just throwing ideas out there.
Also to
I'm just
perhaps
trying to
maybe
figure
not
out where this
understand
coming
what it's actually means.
What is the impetus of all this? Where's this coming from? Because from what I understand, a lot of this stems from the previous council, particular person on the previous council.
I think so.
So are we suffering the blowback of what happened at from the last council? Is this what this is about? Because I am not aware that people on this current council have been making public personal attacks or during council meetings.
I don't know if it's-
Executive session, so I don't understand what this is.
I don't know if it's necessarily attack, but engaging with the speakers, because I think it's safer for the public and for council to not engage during public comment.
No, I'm talking about the censorship thing with
The consequences.
with the council members. So where's that coming from?
I mean, I think if we're gonna have, and we talked about this last meeting, I think you weren't
No, I
able to
wasn't
make it.
there.
But that if we're gonna have consequences for the public, like potential suspension or removal, and we don't have consequences for ourselves, that's really uneven, especially when we already have the more power in the situation. This is about creating the tone, right, wherein we have accountability just like the public does. And that we're responsible for the way the meetings go as well and how we conduct ourselves in those meetings. And these are proposals, right? None of this isn't a vote. This is stuff to bring forward for consideration to the public comment listening session, to the next meeting of this committee, and then to study session and council meeting. So there's four more opportunities to make changes to this still moving forward. So these are just some ideas that have come up from comments we've received from members of the community, comments that council members have made, ideas from discussions with the city attorney. So these are just ideas right now. These aren't
I
formal.
don't think anybody I've seen on the current council would meet these requirements. It's
Yeah.
just to put collaborative rules in place that if something does go awry later on, everybody's, everybody's subject to the same rules. So I agree with you. I do think that we did have on the previous council, not naming names, not gonna go into that, but there were things that happened that put me in a bind legally on certain things, as you all know. And if I can prevent some of that, if Jason on some of the policy stuff could prevent some of that stuff, it makes it better. It's just setting the rules. And so I don't expect.
Understood. I'm
Okay, I just want to make
I
sure.
guess,
Yeah.
and another thing too that wasn't mentioned, I read the surveys too that came back, and a lot of people mentioned, they felt intimidated by folks in the galley, with the clicking and the snapping and the coughing and the outright insulting comments. One, woman came to testify and she was afraid to walk to her car because of the atmosphere inside. So, when people, say
Right,
they're being
shouting over
disrespected and it happens in the galley, so.
We talked about that last meeting, so we're gonna include what we just talked about, like I talked about earlier about if you get a warning, they do it again, they're gonna be asked to leave, and they're gonna be trespassed from being in the council chambers the next meeting.
Yeah, because DC, when Al Green put his sign up, they escorted him right out of the chamber. He didn't even get to speak. So, how is that different from this? We want the same kind of respect in the galley, in the atmosphere. So people who come to talk about potholes and, and
Right.
grass and, food trucks and the things we've been talking, and the things, they want to feel like they're able to do that without feeling scared. And I mean, that is what I'm getting. People feel scared and they shouldn't feel scared and they're staying home.
Right, and there should be no shouting at or even addressing, right? That is something.
Yeah,
we
people
tried to
turn
address in
around
the
and say,
past.
yeah,
The other
like,
members
don't do that,
of the audience, like
Yeah.
that, that should be right out.
Yeah.
And we did talk about that a little bit last time as to what's gonna go in the proposal. So sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, because I even had one of my attorneys that at the last meeting got threatened
Yeah.
from the galley, and I had to have her escorted out. And so, and I talked to Mayor Pro Tem about that. It's like, we need to be able to have consequences for that.
Yeah.
And so we're.
So I feel like we're very impotent in that area, that we just, people just run amok and we can't do anything about it.
And clapping, I'm a little less, like, I know there are a lot of comments.
No, I
about
mean, while
clapping.
they're talking,
I'm-
people are
yeah.
going, click, click, I mean.
Right. That's the only reason why I would say maybe we say clap, also because it delays the next.
It delays the
person.
next speaker and.
So I think
So-
those things we can also talk about, while maybe having some like reasonable ways for folks to demonstrate agreement, right? I don't think we need to be intimidating someone that we disagree with them. But right, maybe we reinstate reminding folks that, you can rise to express agreement or let other folks in the audience know to rise to express agreement at some point during the speech without having clapping, cheering, all those booing. We certainly don't want any booing,
Yeah.
any shouting, or any threats of people that are up there speaking.
Yeah.
I think
People have
that's a
said
pretty
that.
straightforward, like, you cannot shout down people while they're speaking, whether you're a council member or a member of the audience. All right, so I think you
Got
got
it.
an idea of what to bring forward.
Got lots of draft.
All right, thank you for that.
Good job there.
Thank you to our staff
Thank
for your
you.
patience. I know we're past time. And we'll see you next time.
People, it could be our